Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are sorry. Yeah, that technical glitch is getting really confusing. But everyone, hey, welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest-running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Everyone, how you doing? Welcome on to the program. So today, everyone, we have computer and technology news, where, yeah, we will be doing that here in just a moment. So, just so everyone knows, this issue, hopefully we'll have it resolved here shortly. I think it's going to be probably this one. Yeah, let's try that. Okay. And yeah, that might not actually work. You know what? We're just going to close the whole thing down. So everyone, welcome onto the program. We're going to be doing computer and technology news. We have a ton of different stories, and we're going to deep dive into a couple of them just to find out more. So everyone, we hope that you are ready for the program, and you are, you're happy, you're doing well, and you are just kind of doing your thing. So everyone, computer and technology news brought to you by Computer America, starting in just a moment. Everyone, but before that, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find past shows, future shows, all the shows, everything you need to know about the, about the program. You can find there at our website, computeramerica.com. So I think with that being said, we can go ahead and get this started. So I think that due to everything just kind of blowing up in our face here, we're going to go ahead and just, get things started. So everyone, computer and technology news brought to you by Computer America. And our first story that we're going to do is going to be none other than, about Banksy, which oddly enough, we're not really in the business of kind of fine art, high art, but you'd be surprised how often this gentleman really pops up in our news feed. So for this one, it's going to be from BBC News, and Banksy, if you haven't heard about him, he is kind of a guerrilla artist. Instead of having his artwork displayed in an exhibit here and there, no, instead he goes out and he, some would consider it vandalism, but no, he kind of guerrilla makes his artwork show up in different places, and they are generally pretty culturally relevant. And this mystique of, kind of who Banksy actually is, where his art is going to pop up, it's as much kind of mystique as it is the art itself. And yeah, they say that to own a true original Banksy is something that a lot of collectors pay a lot of money. And this particular one, you're looking at about $336,000 for this latest Banksy NFT. So, I'm sure that with art in general, there's always this issue of, is it a real? Is it a reproduction? Is it a forgery? So many questions about the authenticity of art, and NFTs seemingly take care of that, but not so much in this case, because while a Banksy NFT was sold and advertised on his official website, you would think, hey, that's as authentic as you can get. Well, no. Turns out that the person who purchased this actually purchased a fake NFT, and someone had actually hacked into the website, put up this NFT, kind of advertised it on the website, and then auctioned it off and, absconded with the money. They said that a hacker has returned $336,000 to a British collector after he tricked him into buying a fake NFT advertised through the artist's original website and really official website. A link to an online auction for the NFT was posted on a now deleted page of banksy.co.uk, and the auction ended early after the man offered 90% more than rival bidders. And NFTs are just this really crazy thing. The BBC has been really, focused on it, for good reason. I mean, there's another story we can jump into right after this. And we even did our own special segment. I think we did a special segment on NFTs. But by and large, if you've missed this entire craze, if you've been living under a rock, NFTs are non-fungible tokens, is what it stands for. And it's the idea that they can have a particular token, much like a Bitcoin itself, committed to a blockchain, usually the Ethereum blockchain, and it gives you this possibility to say, yes, it's digital, it's not physical by any means. It can be copy and pasted 1 billion times, but only one token, only one version of this thing that can be reproduced infinitely is the original, which is something that, go all the way back to the 90s. And, when people started to digitize music and sell it on iTunes and the like, what would happen to, music if, you're stealing a copy of the music, but the original person still has the original, and someone else just has, a virtual copy of it. What is real? What's worth money? So on and so forth. You have that conversation all over again when it comes to NFTs. But because there is this idea that you can have the original, and because it is Banksy, who, you can see where the world of high art would be very keen on the idea of owning, a particular version of something, even though, like, let's say the Mona Lisa, there are infinite reproductions for sure. There are infinite pictures, high resolution pictures of the Mona Lisa. But of course, there is only one hanging in the Louvre. It really goes to show that this idea of originality and ownership in a day of, or I should say in an era of infinite, just infinite copy pasting means something to some people. I do not happen to be one of those people that believes it is worth infinite, that it is worth something, but hey, some people do. So they're saying that artwork can be tokenized to create a digital certificate of ownership that can be bought and sold, as I was just talking about. They do not generally give the buyer the actual artwork or its copyright. So if you decided that, this image you can see here on the video portion, if someone were to post this again and he didn't like that and he wanted to copyright strike it and saying, this is my property, he has an NFT saying that, this is his, but he does not have, the courts, the legal system do not recognize NFTs as actual ownership. You just own something that says you own something. You don't actually own something in the eyes of the law. So, the man who was in his 30s wanted to remain anonymous, explained over Twitter direct messages that he suspects Banksy's site was hacked and that he was the victim of an elaborate scam. He says that the hacker returned all money except for the transaction fee of around 5,000 euros on Monday evening. So there you go. It's he got most of his money back, and that's more than I think a lot of scammers, kind of do for their people. Although lately there have been a string of scammers who return the money for whatever reason. The prominent NFT collector uses the online name Pranksy, said that the whole episode was bizarre, but the hacker may have got scared, saying that the refund was totally unexpected. I think the press coverage of the hack, plus the fact that I found the hacker and followed him on Twitter, may have pushed him into a refund. Yeah, and hackers nowadays, they like to remain anonymous. They want to make sure that they aren't going to be found, essentially. So there you go. They said that I feel very lucky when a lot of others in similar situations with less reach would not have the same outcome. He says that he was first alerted to the auction by an anonymous person in his community on the social Discord, on the social network Discord on Monday. It's crazy that these services and sites like Discord that are used for video games and groups and study sessions and just casual get-togethers also can lead to high-end art auctions. But yeah, that's just the world we live in. So the official site had a new page called NFT, which included a link to an auction site selling an NFT called The Great Redistribution of the Climate Change Disaster. They say that after enticing a bid far above his rivals, the auction was swiftly ended and the funds in Ethereum were sent to the scammer. So after sending the transaction, the scammer had no reason whatsoever to actually refund the money. He just decided to do that. Now, they say that Tom Robinson from crypto analysis company Elliptic confirmed that there was nothing the buyer could do once he placed the bid in the auction platform OpenSea, saying that OpenSea is the eBay of NFTs. It allows anyone to sell digital art that they can own or have created themselves. Once a bid has been placed, the seller can accept, and the cryptocurrency is irreversibly transferred. So I wanted to also get into a little bit about these NFTs, because there was a story that we didn't get into just a couple of days ago, where this 12-year-old kid went out and made a number of NFTs. And there's also another one that we didn't get into, which is the rock NFTs, which are just kind of crazy. This happened like 2 days ago, and they also mentioned that a particular YouTuber named Logan Paul spent about $155,000 as well on NFT Rocks. So this idea that NFTs are inherently worth something, and people can kind of buy and sell these things, and they're going to retain their value. There's a lot of speculation over what actually happens from this point forward. A lot of people think that this is a scam, that this is not something that is sustainable. This is being perpetrated by a small community that is kind of tricking the world into thinking NFTs are worth something. I'm sure that the same idea has been floated about cryptocurrency in general. So how trustworthy are those rumors? Who actually knows? But what we do know is that hundreds of thousands of dollars are being being traded for these images. And you can see, of course, we're going to open up Twitter here in a second, and rock number 65 and rock number 68. Yes, the highly desirable rock 68 sold for $60,000 and $95,000 apiece. So there you go. They said that We Like the Rocks are now hoping to try to replace Ether Rock as the only market player. Logan Paul even agreed to the theory and went ahead to call the project Digital History. Paul said he bought the rocks for $60,000 and $95,000. The first rock NFT on Ethereum actually came before the Aether Rock. I know it's ridiculous, but it's digital history, and I think they're pretty cool. And they say that the Aether Rocks are valued at about $2 million. So clearly, anyone who can actually see this, it's about, 19 different pixels. It's about 19 pixels, makes it look like a video game asset in a very low resolution kind of game. And these rocks are selling for tens of thousands of dollars. Clearly, they're not worth that much. And in fact, the majority of these rocks, I think it's a collection of like 100 different rocks or something like that. They're a collection of, just a couple hundred different rocks. And the only difference are that the shaded pixels are slightly different colored, which led us to this other story that we were just talking about this 12-year-old who did essentially the same thing. He took Clipart of a digital whale, and he shaded them different colors, and he's been selling them as NFTs on a website. So they say that a 12-year-old boy from London has made about 300,000 pounds, or, that of course works out to, I'm sure, $350,000. Somewhere in that neighborhood, during the school holidays after creating a series of pixelated artwork called Weird Whales and selling NFTs. They say that they do not generally give the buyer the actual artwork or its copyright, as we said before, but but of course, as a 12-year-old, he's never owned a traditional bank account, but he now has about $300,000 in cryptocurrency. His classmates are yet unaware of his newfound wealth, although he made YouTube videos about his hobby, which he enjoys alongside, some of his other activities, saying that my advice to other children that maybe want to get into the space is don't force yourself to do coding, maybe because you get peer pressure, just as if you like cooking, do cooking, if you like dance, do dance, so on and so forth. His father, a software developer, which usually in these cases, whenever you run into a situation, I don't know what it is, but 10-year-old wins science fair with his, with his crazy science project, and his father is always like a nuclear physicist or something like that. Like, you always kind of wonder, of course there's always access to information and access to kind of assistance from the parents. But, when I hear about a story like, a 12-year-old boy selling NFTs on the internet after creating them, kind of makes you think, did this kid really do it, or did his father really help with that? So his father encouraged him and his brother to start coding at the age of 5 or 6, and the children have had the advantage of strong network of technology experts to call on for help and advice. So, they said that this time he drew inspiration from a well-known pixelated whale meme image and a popular digital art style, but used his own program to create the set of 3,350 emoji-type whales. Now, the really important part of this, and you can see the whales there, you can see, you can see the kid there, and here are, just some of the whales with different hats and different shading. Clearly not a lot of difference between these multiple whales. It said that the art world is divided over the current trend of NFTs. Artists say they are useful. They are a useful additional line of revenue, and there are many stories of eye-wateringly high sales, which a lot of those high sales, I think a lot of people would, kind of look at that and go, might be fake. But there's also skepticism over whether they are a realistic long-term investment, and former Christie's auctioneer Charles Alsop told BBC News that buying them made no sense. The idea of buying something which isn't there is just strange. People who invest in it are slight mugs, but I hope they don't lose their money. And it's there and it's not. I mean, you could look at really anything that is, that is digital and really question, is something really there or not? But I will say that when it comes to these prices and the auctions and the way that these are happening, it definitely seems like there's more to it than what a lot of just investors are kind of saying here and there. It's a very confusing time to get into this field, and if you're thinking about doing it, I have seen, this is almost, NFTs remind me a lot of cryptocurrency, but not like Bitcoin or things like that. NFTs remind me a lot of altcoins, or these coins that didn't really make it as big as Ethereum or Bitcoin or even Dogecoin. Although Dogecoin would be probably a more apt comparison, they are tokens that, by and large, no one's really going to care about these things. And the ones that the ones that people are going to care about, I mean, how expensive are those going to be when you can NFT pretty much anything? The world's first tweet was turned into an NFT. You have meme images selling as NFTs, and even though everyone had access to it, everyone knows it, and it's long since lost its popularity, suddenly you care about these things that have been long, essentially dead for a number of years. It's really crazy, and of course you can look at the artwork of Beeple that sold for almost $70 million and say, well, of course it's real. I mean, this money is actually going through people's hands. But I am still very skeptical, especially when no regulation, no oversight, and it's very speculative. And what actually becomes of all that, who knows? It's a strange time to get into NFTs. So, it's a topic that keeps coming back up, and I just thought that would be a fun way to kind of open up the show. Now, our next story that we're going to do is actually going to be about Windows 11. And just a quick update, we're not going to talk about any kind of controversies or anything like that, but check this one out. Windows 11, we have a release date, and that release date is none other than October 5th. Mark your calendars. They said that the OS won't support Android apps out of the gate, though. So obviously, if you're really excited about that particular feature, the idea of running smartphone apps on Windows 11, one of the drawbacks. But Windows 11 has a release date, October 5th. This by John Fingus, Engadget. saying that both as a free upgrade for qualifying Windows 11 systems, as well as new PCs shipping with the OS pre-installed. There you go. Now, don't assume you'll get the upgrade day one. This is a gradual rollout that will prioritize newer hardware and use intelligence models to determine who gets the upgrade first, including reliability and device age. All supported machines will get the update by mid-2022, but this suggests that you may be towards the back of the queue if you're using older hardware. At least some shipping Windows 10 PCs will be on the fast track for Windows 11, including Acer, Asus, Dell, HP, Lenovo, Samsung, and Microsoft. So it seems like they're trying to counter this trend that whenever there's a new operating system, kind of right out of the gate, people slack off on buying PCs because they think, I'll just wait for Windows 11 to come out and then I'll buy a PC with it already installed. So I guess if you buy a new PC in the next couple of months, you would be one of the first ones to get the new operating system because it won't ship with it, but it will be available shortly thereafter. Now, notably though, Android app support won't be available on launch. Microsoft now only expects to introduce the feature in a Windows Insider Preview build sometime in the coming months. And that's not completely shocking given the challenges of translating mobile apps to a mouse and keyboard experience, but this still means one of Windows 11's tentpole features won't be available for a long time. Which, there are ways to do this, and they involve emulators, but I think to run natively in Windows 11, like Microsoft is hoping, you are essentially really have one or two options, and it's either make Windows the operating system, learn how to compile and run Android coding, or you have to do some kind of virtual environment that acts like an Android phone and then, of course, runs those apps. Seems like they're trying to go with the first one, which is much more complicated, but of course has a lot more payoff, because you don't have to essentially run a virtual environment, which is like a theoretical computer inside of a computer. Everything would be much more interchangeable if it just worked natively. But hey, are we actually going to get that? It seems like it's going to take a bit of time. So the new platform centers on a refresh interface with a new start interface, snap layouts, widgets, and Teams integration. Essentially, if you've seen what it looks like, everything is centered, everything is more clean looking, almost Apple-esque in its feature set. They're saying that you'll also find a redesigned Microsoft Store that even lets third-party stores operate within its walls, which was a huge improvement over what Microsoft had been doing lately, which, is really a long time coming, if you think about it. I mean, it's not surprising at all. You can definitely say that the model that Apple and Google have been kind of running with their own software stores has been very successful, and to some extent successful in reducing the amount of malware and horrible programs that are on the platform, but more so successful when it comes to the revenue that these companies generate. So Windows wants a little bit of that, but I think that they did it very well by letting other companies release their stores within Microsoft stores, which means, as weird as it sounds, as someone who's been using Windows for the better part of 3 decades, the idea of not just going to someone's website and downloading their software and calling it a day is a bit different. Even back in the day, you would go to a third-party store, your Costco's, your Fry's, your Circuit City, your CompUSA's, and you would buy the box, take it home, and install it on your computer, through CDs, DVDs, whatever. And now Microsoft is finally jumping into, they've been in the space, but just never very dominant. They're finally jumping into the virtual marketplace where, hey, lo and behold, they might be able to do what Apple and Google have been doing for years. Now, they say that technology like DirectX 12, Direct Storage, and Auto HDR also promise to help people who play video games. This might not be a Microsoft's smoothest launch. On top of the delayed Android feature, Microsoft sparked some confusion about the relatively steep hardware requirements that have evolved over time and include demand for security features like TPM 2.0. Microsoft will technically let you install Windows 11, but might be denied security updates unless you're willing to install new OS images on a frequent basis. Unlike Windows 10, you can't just assume your years-old computer will run the software without a hitch. And as was pointed out by one of our viewers yesterday, they promised security updates for Windows 10 up until 2025. So if you have one of those old pieces of hardware, and what that actually means, because we've never been given a strict definition of what older hardware means. But if you have one of those, then maybe sticking with Windows 10 would be your best bet. But even if you didn't want to stick with Windows 10 and you have that older hardware, then you might still have to wait months and months to actually install the new operating system. So there you go. Windows 11, October 5th. Mark your calendars. Okay, very, very cool. How about we go ahead and talk about... This was a big change that happened today. And not to get too far into the subject matter, but this is something that will affect a lot of people. At least those who use Facebook. Facebook will reduce political content on the newsfeed starting today. There you go. Saying that you might see fewer posts about the current events as well, which, hey, some would definitely say that's not the worst thing in the world. Facebook has been very unreliable when it comes to accurately curating and showing current events and political messaging. Now, Chris Holt from Engadget saying that Facebook is planning to reduce political content in the newsfeed starting today. The move, which was first reported by Axios, follows tests in the US, Canada, and Brazil, as well as Indonesia earlier this year, where Facebook limited political content. The company plans to expand the test to Costa Rica, Sweden, Spain, and Ireland. Someone must be throwing a dart at a globe because this rollout makes no sense. But here we are. Quote, "These changes are in response to common feedback from our community. We conduct ongoing research with people to hear what parts of Facebook are working well for them and to gather feedback about what we could be doing better. One of the themes that we've heard is that some people feel that there's too much political content in their news feeds, and we hope these changes address this feedback and preserve the ability for people to find and interact with political content on Facebook while respecting their appetite for it at the top of their news feed." Essentially, people think it's it's a bit too divisive, and that's one of the problems. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, so on and so forth. When it comes to social media, what gets promoted is what gets interactions. Even if those interactions are dislikes, reports, whatever, probably not reports, but even if those interactions are dislikes and angry comments, it doesn't matter. If something is getting a lot of traction and there's a lot of interaction with it, one way or the other, that is what these companies think people want to see. Because it really stands to reason. If people are, reacting to this, then they care about it. And if they care about it, then other people will care about it. So you promote it. And when it comes to politics, let's face it, people care about politics, probably too much, but yeah, a lot of people care about politics. So it's often one of the predominant themes that happen on social media, which is not a reflection of real life. I don't know about you, but my day-to-day conversations are really not political in nature, which thank goodness they aren't. But when you step onto a platform that derives its success from the amount of advertising revenue, clicks, click-throughs, so on and so forth, and they need to keep you on the platform and clicking for as long as possible, they're going to give you the most vitriolic and crazy stuff that they can find to make sure that you stay put. Hence, politics. Now, Facebook says that some engagement signals are better than others at indicating which posts people deem interesting or valuable. As a result, the company is expanding some tests related to engagement signals. Essentially, not all engagement is the same engagement, and maybe not everything should be weighed the exact same. Now, the test puts less importance on how likely a user is to share or comment on political content, saying, quote, "At the same time, we're putting more emphasis on new signals, such as how likely people are to provide us with negative feedback on posts about political topics and current events when we rank those types of posts in their newsfeed." The changes could reduce the level of misinformation on Facebook if the algorithms are able to effectively detect and de-emphasize all political content. There you go. Now, political campaigns might have to rethink their strategies of how to reach voters too. On the flip side, the move could come as a blow to news organizations, especially those focused on politics, given the amount of traffic that Facebook can drive to websites, which is a huge amount. Don't forget that all of this, all these topics and all this area of conversation, the biggest part of a lot of it is that clicks, interactions, views, shares, so on and so forth. That's money. That's money in people's pockets. And they have every incentive in the world to be as weird and attention-grabbing as they need to be. Even if it's not true, even if it's completely false, money drives a lot of the narrative. Now, the switch could also make Facebook a less hostile place for users. Political discussion can quickly get heated, which might put off those who use the service largely for keeping in touch with their loved ones and sharing pictures of their kids. For what it's worth, Facebook claimed in November political content makes up just 6% of what users see. Which is all the more important, because if it makes up only 6% of what users see, it's still like 90% of what we talk about, though, when it comes to social media. Like it's a really big problem when it comes to to politics and social media. So all the more confusing. Now, quote, "We've learned that these changes will affect public affairs content more broadly and that publishers may see an impact to their traffic. Knowing this, we are planning a gradual and methodical rollout for these tests, but remain encouraged and expect to announce further expansions in the coming months." So the report follows changes. The report changes follow other moves that Facebook has made to make political content less visible. It stopped reminding civic and political groups recommending civic and political groups to users earlier this year, after temporarily pausing those for the 2020 U.S. elections. Honestly, I get that Facebook, Twitter, so on and so forth, it can be seen as the public square, the place where people go to discuss politics in the day's, kind of daily thing. Should it be, though? A public space, a public square, it has never really been, kind of owned by a single company. It's always just been a for public place. That has changed, and I don't know if Facebook or Twitter or any other company can be trusted to essentially own the place where public discourse happens. And I really do feel like the more we de-emphasize these important conversations off of privately held platforms, the better everyone is going to be, because we get nothing done, we get more divisive, and it really doesn't change all that much. It really only benefits a few people at Facebook in particular. It doesn't really benefit anyone else. Even though you feel like you're being heard because people are reacting to you, they're talking back to you. You feel like you get more engagement than if you just went to your local government building and started yelling. You may feel more involved, and of course, it's easier to do. It's not productive at all. And somehow trying to figure out how we're going to make these places a productive environment, not going to happen. So, yep, there you go. We'll go ahead and move on from that. So that's my take on that whole thing. Okay. How about we go ahead and talk about okay, this is a trend that I'm still trying to explain to my parents, and I'm glad to see a report coming from The Guardian that, really, well, actually, no, this isn't even a report. This is just like just a survey. Okay, so just the headline, just to key you all in. We're not actually going to do the article because the article itself is pretty bare bones. The survey has found that only a fraction of 16 to 24-year-olds think phone calls are remotely important, so they've put their phones on vibrate. There you go. It's, the younger generation has decided that they don't want people to call them. A 2017 Ofcom survey, and this is 2017, so you can imagine nowadays it's even worse with the amount of spam calls people get. Found that only 15% of 16 to 24-year-olds consider phone calls the most important method of communication. They say that the same study found that 49% of teens were happy emailing, texting, or instant messaging on apps such as WhatsApp with someone who was in the same room as them. There you go. And there are lots of different ways to message each other now. So they, I don't know. If you find yourself having a ringtone altogether, then you may be of an older generation. Just saying. So if you want to stay young, silence your phone. That's really what it comes down to. Let's go ahead and, quit picking on older people, and let's talk about, okay, this one's also quick. LinkedIn, if you don't know, had this feature called Stories. If you are a user of Snapchat or other, sites like TikTok and whatnot, there are stories that people can post. They're short little snippets that, either just daily events or, curated videos. And they're stories that were first launched back in February 2020 that would just be, kind of quick blurbs and insights into people's life. And it kind of makes sense on Snapchat or Facebook or so on, or Instagram, where you want to share something, you want to post something, but you don't want to commit it to your profile forever. It's a daily kind of thing. It's something that you just kind of do off the cuff, and then eventually it goes away and everyone forgets about it. Well, LinkedIn isn't really that kind of service, regardless of what Microsoft wants it to be. They say that turns out you want to create lasting videos that tell your professional story in a more personal way and that showcase both your personality and expertise. In developing stories, we assume people wouldn't want informal videos attached to their profile, and that would reduce barriers that people feel about posting. So LinkedIn Moves follows Twitter's shutdown of Fleets, its story-like product, in July. Like LinkedIn, Twitter observed that users didn't respond to ephemeral video in the way it had wanted, saying, quote, we hoped Fleets would help more people feel more comfortable joining the conversation on Twitter. But in the same time as we introduced Fleets to everyone, we haven't seen an increase in the number of new people joining the conversation like we had hoped. So yeah, people just aren't that engaged with short form video. That, again, is meant to be deleted. That is meant to go away out of nowhere. The two shutdowns could signal a broader pullback from ephemeral video products among social media companies. However, it seems unlikely that Snapchat or Instagram will be giving up on their stories anytime soon, because you may be wondering, what is the gain from these companies? Why are companies trying to push this to its users? And the answer is, again, engagement. It's always engagement, where people can watch these things. They can just kind of thumb through them, watch them. They're very quick and easy to digest. And then between them, you can push ads, you can push products, and you could sell ad space that would not normally be there. Any way to cram another ad in is something worth exploring to these companies. Now, they say that now we just have to wait and see which social media companies step back from their Clubhouse clones. If you're wondering, LinkedIn is working on one of those as well. So this idea of like Rooms, Clubhouse, a place that you can kind of pop in, pop out, like a Zoom meeting that's constantly going on. It's also probably not the best idea, but hey, any place to get another ad or some more user time invested. There you go. Okay, everyone. That was story number, what was that? Story number 6? Yeah, story number 6. Story number 7. How about Toyota? Just real quick. Turns out Toyota had an accident back in 2020. And, well, Toyota restarts driverless vehicle tests after an accident. And you can see them here. They're actually very futuristic. They're very cool. They're autonomous, essentially, buses. They're like cabs that hold normally like 6 to 8 people. And they're essentially e-pallet pods. And they were halted after a vehicle hit a visually impaired athlete last week. The athlete was not seriously injured, but he had to pull out of an event because of cuts and bruises. Not good. They say that Toyota is resuming operations of its autonomous vehicles at the Paralympic Games Village in Tokyo following an accident. Which is kind of ironic, that all this autonomous driving, self-driving stuff would actually help people with disabilities, and then this one happens to go over and actually hit someone who has a disability. So the vehicles will now have more operator control and extra staff to ensure that they do not hit more people. And a member of Japan's judo team was hit as he was walking across a pedestrian crossing on Thursday. So the gentleman was unable to compete in his category because of the accident. In a statement late Monday, Toyota said that the vehicle sensor detected the pedestrian crossing and activated the automatic brake, and the operator also activated the emergency brake. The vehicle and pedestrians, however, came into contact before it could come to a complete halt. So it did brake, just not fast enough. Very important, to make sure that if you want to make sure you don't hit people, to stop in time. Now, the company said that the operators would now be given control over how fast the vehicle travels, with 2 members of safety staff on board rather than 1 to help look out for pedestrians. Yeah, I feel like we're taking a step back here. If you really sit and think about it, so they have autonomous vehicles that shouldn't need a driver, but instead of just not needing a driver, now it has 2 safety personnel in the vehicle to make sure they don't hit anyone. So we've somehow managed to go from 1 driver driving each pod, bus, whatever, to now 2 safety personnel not driving the bus. I feel like maybe Toyota doesn't really understand the purpose of self-driving. Or at least, we are not at the stage where we had hoped self-driving would be, where we are actually doubling the number of drivers that these vehicles need. But I digress. They said that the company will also said it is cooperating with local police investigation into the cause of the accident. And of course, there was the apology saying that the chief executive of Toyota made a public apology for the incident. A vehicle is stronger than a person, so I was obviously worried about how they were. And the accident illustrated just how difficult it was to operate self-driving vehicles in the special circumstances of the village, i.e. the Olympic Games Village, during the Paralympics with people who are visually impaired or have other disabilities. It shows that the autonomous vehicles are not yet realistic for normal roads, which is true. Obviously someone who was fully, probably had their vision would have known to have, would have had that level of self-preservation to not step in front of a moving vehicle. This just happened to be a horrible set of circumstances that led to that. Now, the company's e-Pallet Pod, a fully autonomous electric vehicle, was adapted specifically to use during the Tokyo Olympic and Paralympic Games, which with large doors and electric ramps to allow for groups of athletes to board quickly. The world's biggest car maker is trying to develop autonomous vehicles to operate safely on public roads. So, still a lot of work to do. So they said that at the time, Toyota declared that they were going to transform itself from a car company to a mobility company. So essentially, these e-pod, these e-pallet movers, they're essentially people movers, and instead of just being a car company, they're saying that they're going to help people get around, regardless of what that is going to look like, which is an important conversation to have all on its own. It's this idea that cars don't have to look like traditional cars, whatever gets people from point A to point B, especially in different settings, including, city settings or, hey, maybe highways, maybe city streets, what that actually looks like. It seems like Toyota wants to be in there. Just their autonomous cars are not yet ready. And trust me, no one's autonomous car is ready for full-blown autonomous driving. Now, how about... one more from Engadget, and this is by Mr. Steve Dent. NVIDIA. They blew everyone's mind a couple of weeks ago when they said that their CEO was completely CGI. And then they unblew everyone's mind when it turns out that only about 13 seconds of the CEO's performance, which was like 2 hours long, only about like 13 or 10 seconds was actually completely CGI. And if you recall the scene from their big product announcement, it was when they kind of stripped away the kitchen, they, moved the island, and they put him into a virtual space. And instead of bringing him in, kind of chroma keying him on a green screen and then inputting him into the video, NVIDIA was able to actually train in its artificial intelligence algorithm to not only take high-res scans of their CEO and then put them onto a put them onto a 3D model of the CEO so he looked just like him. But then they were able to train the AI to, kind of have his movements and his mannerisms and his way of, presenting. So it was impressive, but not as impressive, I think, as everyone would first assume. But I also think it's more impressive than everyone, kind of gives them credit for, because it is really something else that they're able to do this. Now, looks like they're trying to take their AI ambitions a little bit further, where, they're trying to make AI voices more expressive and realistic. So there you go. Saying that the voices of Amazon's digital assistant, Google's digital assistant, and other AIs are far ahead of old school GPS devices, which, if you remember old school GPS devices, they were horrible. It was very robotic sounding, and, there are some predetermined lines from digital assistants that sound almost human, but then there are others where it's just trying to convey, the name of a song or a recipe or something like that. That's kind of obviously not pre-planned, and it still sounds very robotic. Well, NVIDIA has unveiled new research and tools that can capture those natural speech qualities by letting you train the AI system with your own voice, the company announced at the Interspeech 2021 conference. Didn't even know about this one. To improve its AI voice synthesis, NVIDIA's text-to-speech research team developed a model called the RAD-TTS, a winning entry at the NAB, the National Association of Broadcasters, broadcast convention competition to develop the most realistic avatar. The system allows an individual to train a text-to-speech model with their own voice, including pacing, tonality, timbre, and more. So there you go. Because, there's a lot that goes into making a voice sound very, very appealing, and of course very human-like. We all have different qualities that make our voices sound very unique. If you want to learn how to not speak, hey, you could always listen to me. But there are people who spend a lot of time and a lot of effort actually speaking very, very correctly. So teaching an AI to train non-realistic voices to sound realistic would be very difficult. Now, they said that another rad TTS feature is voice conversation, which lets a user deliver one speaker's words using another person's voice. That interface gives fine frame-level control over a synthesized voice pitch, duration, and energy. Using this technology, NVIDIA's research team created more conversational-sounding voice narratives for its own I Am AI video series, which I don't know if this would work, with what we're doing. So that actually does work.
I'm a visionary.
For the GTC conference, and they really
so let's see if we can. Okay, so this is going to be an example of what they're talking about. So let's see if we can do this.
I am a storyteller, giving emotion to words.
So we've been trying for quite some time to have.
So not bad. Let's see if there's another example we have here. Probably right here. So everyone, this is again a more conversational AI that NVIDIA has been working on to make voices sound more human. So this is again an example of that.
My love has come along. With this model, we now have this liberty to create artistic themes.
You as a human.
So essentially what they, they sang a little voice line there, that was all created digitally, to actually be able to create not just speech, but also music and song with an art. Imagine how good AI can sing right now if it was not given any, if it was not pre-recorded by a voice actor or anything like that. No, it would sound awful, but that sounded actually very unique, and they're able to do that. So
for his or her own voice and guide the persona's voice.
Yep, so they're definitely working on this, and again, it's not even so much about training a voice to sound more like any voice. You can also train a voice to sound more like your voice. So clearly there is a lot of work around certain voices. You can imagine that David Attenborough's voice is probably very well synthesized. But hey, what if you want a voice in your voice? That's something that would be possible using technology like this. They're even saying, quote, with this interface, our video producer could record himself recording the video script and then use the AI model to convert his speech into the female narrator's voice. Using the baseline narration, the producer could then direct the AI voice actor like a voice actor, tweaking the synthesized speech to emphasize specific words and modifying the pacing of the narration to better express the video's tone. NVIDIA is distributing some of this research, optimized to run efficiently on NVIDIA's GPUs, of course, to anyone who wants to try it via open source through their NVIDIA Nemo Python toolkit for GPU-accelerated conversation AI. So there you go. They're saying that developers can fine-tune any model for their use case, speeding up training using mixed precision computing on NVIDIA Tensor Core GPUs. So a little bit of advertising for what it is that NVIDIA itself is always good at, which is creating GPUs. But yeah, more conversation, more realistic standards when it comes to video, when it comes to audio manipulation. So best of luck to them. I hope that they can do that. Let's, we're probably not going to do that one though. Let's do this one. I've been very curious about this, and I'm going to save it for last, but this supposedly just happened in 24 hours, so it's hard to get a really good picture on this. But Australia, unprecedented surveillance bill rushed through Parliament in just 24 hours. So they're saying that the Australian government has been moving towards a surveillance state for some years now, and by the way, this coming from tutanota.com, which is not a typical source of news, but we'll go with it for now. They're saying that Australia has been has been moving towards a surveillance state for some time. Now they are putting the nail in the coffin with an unprecedented surveillance bill that allows the police to hack your device, collect or delete your data, and take over your social media accounts without sufficient safeguard to prevent abuse with these new powers. So the Surveillance Legislation Amendment, Identify and Disrupt Bill 2020, gives Australian Federal Police and the Australian Criminal Intelligence Commission 3 new powers for dealing with online crime. And I think this is usually the issue with with these tools that, be it in America or Australia, the tools that they give these people, law enforcement, to deal with these issues usually are very wide-ranging, and unfortunately, they're not very well thought out. So let's see if they are here. So the new legislation, 1, data disruption warrant gives the police the ability to disrupt data by modifying, copying, adding, or deleting it. Right out of the gate, the ability to change or delete it or modify it, and not just catalog it, not just keep records of it or anything like that. Like the ability to add data seems very suspicious, and also the ability to just modify it without, with a warrant, but still very. Well, actually, I guess it says without a judge's warrant. Now, the next one, 2, network activity warrant allows the police to collect intelligence from devices or networks that are used or likely to be used by those subject to the warrant. So, let's say if they feel like, this person travels to a particular city, if they decided to, and they can maybe find proof that they go to a Starbucks, they could then tap every single network that Starbucks has and track everyone, all the data, everything flowing through that network. They're allowed to do that now. And of course, you can even take that to the next step, just saying, the person, where they live, their neighbors, any place of business, all of that data and all of those networks would then be subject to investigation to their form of the CIA, I would assume. Very wide-ranging and very, when it comes to data and technology, we always like a more finer scope when it comes to these, this legislation. But still, that was number 2. Number 3, account takeover warrant allows the police to take control of an online account, i.e. social media, for the purposes of gathering information for investigation. So it's even beyond that. If they suspect that someone is, selling drugs online or something, this would give them permission to get on their social media and to actually say, I am so-and-so, and you could totally talk to me. It's very, very suspicious that they're getting so many privileges like that. So the 2 Australian law enforcement bodies, AFP and ACIC, will soon have the power to modify, add, copy, or delete your data, should you become a suspect in the investigation of a serious crime. What makes this legislation even worse is that there's no judicial oversight. A data disruption or network activity warrant could be issued by a member of the Administrative Appeals Tribunal. A judge's warrant is not needed. So essentially, these are standing warrants. Like if they need to do anything that are in these warrants, they can just ask someone who is not a judge to obtain one, and then they just kind of rubber stamp it and do it. So the justification, they say the need for the bill by stating that it is intended to fight child exploitation and terrorism, which we saw the uproar that happened with Apple whenever they tried to implement their child exploitation system. And of course, terrorism. We always know that that word generally means that you could do pretty much anything you want if you invoke terrorism. However, the bill itself enables law enforcement to investigate any serious Commonwealth offense or serious state offense that has a federal aspect. Essentially, the wording enables the police to investigate any offense which is punishable by imprisonment for at least 3 years, including terrorism, sharing child abuse material, violence, acts of piracy, bankruptcy, and company violations, and of course, tax evasion. So anything that carries more than 3 years in jail, they can pull up any of these warrants. Yeah, it's very, very wide-ranging, and Australia is not, the craziest place in the world. I'm expecting this to be kind of taken on by their legal system. But yeah, I digress. Everyone, we're flat out of time. I promise, actually, right after the show, I'm going to try to get to work on fixing the sound system. Everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much. Sorry again for the messed up intro and everything and everything like that. But everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.